Welcome. Today we're going to find out how an expert sleuth finds an expert witness. You're going to learn things no TV lawyer would ever teach you. Stay tuned, because the better part starts now.
Welcome to The Better Part, a program that encompasses a diverse spectrum of topics important to our community, which we hope will both inform and entertain you. We invite you to sit back and enjoy the program.
Hello, I'm Sarah Doxiadis with The Better Part. Joining us today is an expert sleuth who sniffs out expert witnesses. I'd like to welcome Dr. Charles Bedord, who is going to be telling us how he goes about finding expert witnesses around the world for all kinds of legal disputes and cases. Welcome, Chuck.
Thank you. It's nice being here.
Glad to have you here with us today. Well, I understand that you have quite a job sitting in your armchair, sleuthing around the world. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do when you go to look for an expert witness?
Well, when I start looking for an expert witness, first of all, I read the case that's involved, and I usually get a brief summary from the attorneys involved with the case as far as what type of expert they're looking for. And this will be a sentence, well, this will be a summary of maybe one paragraph in length. We would like somebody with this kind of a background who has in-depth knowledge of this area, of this certain type of subject matter. And so then I launch my search really off that type of information.
And what kinds of cases, what kinds of legal issues do you normally have to find these expert witnesses for?
All types of cases. I've been involved in just about everything from A to Z. I've been involved in cases that involve patent infringements. I've searched for experts that involve violations of environmental laws in various countries. I've been involved in cases which involve personal injury due to product design. I've been involved in cases that involve monetary damages due to environmental types of disasters. Mm-hmm. So just a whole variety of things. You just never know what you're going to get sent to you.
So how many of these expert witnesses do you have to ferret out each week? Is it a weekly thing for you?
I generally get 1 to 2 cases a week. So I have a pretty constant workload coming in, and so it runs in about 1 to 2. Sometimes it slows down to 1 every other week, but it's pretty constant 1 to 2 a week.
And do some of these have higher priority or a bigger turnaround, quicker turnaround than others?
Yes, I get 2 types of cases. One we call a priority 1 case, and this is a type of case where it looks like the case is going to go to trial. Mm-hmm. And, there's a very high likelihood that we're going to go to trial, and they need an expert as soon as possible. Mm-hmm. In that case, I try to identify a expert within 2 days. Mm-hmm. that I can submit. And those priority cases, again, they constitute about 25%. Mm-hmm. The other 75% of cases are cases which may or may not ever go to trial, that a plaintiff or defendant has indicated that, yes, there's a possible litigation coming up. We don't know for sure, but let's start looking at some resumes or CVs and identify some people just in case.
Mm-hmm. And how did you get involved in this? How do these people come to you to get all these expert witnesses?
Well, I got involved. I had worked 30 years in the pharmaceutical industry, and I took retirement from a large pharmaceutical company. But in those 30 years, I'd been involved on project teams, drug development project teams. And in the pharmaceutical business, patents are a big deal. Mm-hmm. You have all types of patents on new types of molecules, patents on uses of molecules, patents on manufacturing processes, and so on. after retirement, I was going through online search looking for something to do. And I went to a site, it was called Virtual Vocations. And I ran across a company which was looking for a expert or a person with a Ph.D. in the biological sciences. And they wanted someone who knew something about patenting in pharmaceuticals. And I've been around a number of, I'm just on the very periphery of a number of cases that involve patents affecting different types of formulations of pharmaceuticals, such as topical gels, IV formulations, oral tablets, because many of these types of formulations are patented. So I thought, well, why not? I'd go ahead and try it. So one thing led to another, and that's how I entered the field.
So you just kind of on chance found something that sounded interesting. And once you contacted this firm about your first sleuthing experience, what did you have to do to convince them that you were the person for the job?
Well, initially they contacted me back by email, and we set up a time for a phone call. So I got a phone call, and they spent about half an hour interviewing me on the phone. And then they said they were going to send me a hypothetical case. Let's say that we wanted a person with this kind of a background, with these kind of characteristics, previous deposition experience or testimony experience, and we'll give you 4 hours to find this person.
Wow.
And and could you put together a brief summary of what the person you found, a little bit about the background, how it's relevant to the case, and then send it to me. And then we'll call you back the next day.
So you had to read the requirements, find somebody, and then write them up all in 4 hours.
That's right. And so I initially I thought, this is impossible.
It sounds pretty hard.
I just panicked. So I got very familiar with Google very fast. And I did, I found a person at an academic at a university, and I wrote this person up and submitted it. And then they gave me a call back the next day. And they said that I'd done okay on this. Then they arranged for a second telephone interview.
Wow.
So I went through a second telephone interview, and I was told that I was going to be hired, and they sent me a contract.
Nice. So now you're working for this company under contract.
That's right.
What kind of resources do you have besides using Google, for example, to help you find these people?
Well, there's about 3 or 4 different ways I go about this. Number one is I use LinkedIn. Well, I shouldn't say LinkedIn is number one, but number one, I use the company database. I work for a company called Reuben Andrews Scientific out of Boston, Massachusetts. And they have a large database of people. Oh, it's into the thousands probably, of people who are specialists in various areas. And you can identify individuals by putting in keywords, etc.
So you start with that because they're already established experts in that
Yes,
area.
and they're familiar with the company. They're familiar with Reuben Andrews. They've been through this process many times, sometimes before, and they know what's going to be involved. So that's where I start. And about probably 50% of the time, I can find the person I'm looking for there. If that doesn't work, my next choice is to go to Google, and I usually go to Google Advanced Search and type in keywords or key phrases and see who pops up. And I can identify some people up off of that. And many times they'll be personal consultants. They'll have their emails listed on the site. So I do that. A third choice is I go to LinkedIn.
Yeah. And what is different in LinkedIn from what you get in some of the other resources from the company you're working with or from Google Advanced?
I don't know. LinkedIn is a little bit more difficult in the sense that they don't automatically provide their email. So essentially, I send a message to them saying, I'd like to contact you about a possible consulting opportunity. Would you please send me your email so I can provide, contact you and provide you some more information, etc. So that's generally the sequence I go through. The company database, followed by Google, followed by LinkedIn.
And then what about professional websites? Do you have to go through those at any
Those are
time?
very good, and actually I'm glad you mentioned that, because that is sometimes something I overlook when I really get tied up in a case, and I've got to remind myself, type in some keywords, and oftentimes you'll see a professional website. For instance, I was involved in a case in baking goods. And I didn't know that never occurred to me that there would be a professional baking society website. So I went into that website, and there were the names of officers in the organization, their email addresses, phone numbers, et cetera, et cetera. So professional websites can also be very useful.
Very good. Sounds like a lot of work, but it's nice that you don't have to go knocking on everybody's door in a literal way.
No. And generally what I do is that we have kind of a standard boilerplate letter that we send out saying that we're looking for a person with this kind of a background to assist in a legal action, and that would you be interested in learning more about this? If you are not interested, could you please recommend the name of someone who might be, and so on. So once I get the email address, I'll contact them by email and send that. And I'd say about 2/3 of the people will get back to me.
Oh, wow.
And say, yes, I would like to learn more about this. I am interested. And the next step then is to respond and say, could we schedule a phone call for a certain time? And then we set up the phone interview.
Now, do you have access to, or do you request looking at their CV before you actually talk to them on the phone, or does it just sort of depend?
Generally, sometimes their CV is available off the Ruben Anders archives of candidates, or it's available on, let's say, off of Google, somewhere like this. Most cases, I don't get the CV immediately. What I do is that during the phone interview, I ask them a series of questions. I have some standard questions that I have to go through and ask. And if at the end of the discussion on the phone, they seem to be a fit, and if they are interested in going to the next level of interview, then I ask them to send me a CV. And what I'll do then is I'll write up a brief summary of our phone discussion, and a couple, maybe a paragraph or two, and I'll send that along with a copy of their CV to our attorneys in Boston, and the attorneys will run through it. And if they think it might be a fit, they'll contact the individual with the second round of interview.
Other than the technical qualifications, there must be some other things they have to be able to do, or other experience they have. Can you tell us about that?
Well, more or less of a checklist of questions I run through is, first of all, I look for conflicts. When I talk to them on the phone.
What kind of conflicts are we talking about?
Well, conflicts of interest. So let's say company A sues company B. And first thing I'll say, here are the parties involved, and I'll identify the names of the companies, and then I will say, are you conflicted with either of these companies? In other words, are you currently contracting with them? Do you have a close relative, or let's say a close friend who works for or contracts with this company? Do you have any stock in the company or any financial interest in this company? So these are the type, or let's say, have you consulted with the company? Have you been involved in previous legal cases with the company? So these are areas of possible conflict of interest. And of course, if they have these conflicts, they would be eliminated. Second of all, I will check, I'll get an opinion that, for instance, we are looking for an expert to help represent the plaintiff or the defendant. And I'll get some initial assessment. could they represent the plaintiff or the defendant ethically? I mean, what side would they be on? Well, let's say you get a case with a certain type of medical device, and 5 years ago they testified, let's say, on the behalf of a plaintiff, again, against the manufacturer, and now you're looking for someone to testify on the behalf of the defendant of a and so it gets a little bit difficult there. You have to be sure that they don't have any fairly recent testimony that they'd be conflicted with.
Yeah.
Then I'll look at their fees.
Oh, yeah, I hadn't thought about money coming into this.
And fees for an expert witness, I'll give you just a kind of a ballpark range. Fees generally run from a low of about, I'd say $150 to $200 an hour, up to, let's say, for most witnesses, a top fee would be around $600 an hour. And you have some specialty. When you get into specialists, like certain types of MDs, for instance, with certain types of specializations, you can get up close to $1,000 an hour.
Wow.
And so you have to look at the fee. Does the fee would they have to jot down the fee, write that up with your submission, and would that be acceptable to the client that you're trying to find an expert with?
Now, with this kind of the fee situation, are the experts compensated during testimony or during their research that they might be doing if they have to write up an opinion? How does that work?
Yes, usually the compensation is on an hourly basis, and they'll submit an invoice for the number of hours that they spent on the case. Sometimes the fee is the same for basic research. Let's say writing up, researching a topic and then writing up a written opinion, as it is for testimony. Other expert witnesses will charge one rate for research and written testimony, but they'll charge another rate for in-court testimony. So you have to take all this into account.
So, and now that you brought it up, I assume that you're not just doing this for fun and amusement. What are some general parameters on how you get compensated?
Well, generally, I get compensated on an hourly basis for how many hours it takes me to, from the time I receive a case to the time that I write up and submit a witness. And then I will also I'm compensated that I receive a bonus if the witness is actually hired for the case. If they actually sign a contract.
So on the one hand, I assume you get paid when you submit the information, but it might be a while before you find out if you're going to get a bonus.
Absolutely. So some of these cases you can run for 3-4 months before you find out if they actually signed a contract. And this is because most cases, and I'll say probably 70% of all cases that you start to get involvement with are going to be settled out of court.
Yeah. Even if they think they're going to trial.
If they think they're going to trial. Somehow they're going to be settled out of court. Only about, I would guess now, only about 30% of the cases you initially get involved with will eventually go to trial.
Wow. But you never know, I guess.
You never know.
You've got to assume you're going all the way. Oh, gosh. Well, you mentioned earlier that your background was primarily in pharmaceuticals and medical areas, and yet you've also mentioned that you're able to find expert witnesses in other fields. What are some of the interesting types of cases that you've run into that you might be able to share with us, at least in generalities?
Well, in general, for instance, I started out as kind of specializing in patents. And patents are involved in just any number of things, especially in the technology world. Patents for patent violation cases for uses of certain software and hardware technologies. I've been involved in patent cases that, let's say, involve the design of cooking utensils, the design of a crock pot, something like this, patents covering that. I've been involved in patent issues that involve the design of women's shoes.
Boy.
Let's say I've been involved in many other types of litigation, civil litigations involving personal damages. Say one case involved the design of a child's cot in which the child contracted an illness from sleeping in the cot, allegedly. So I needed two experts in that case. In that one case was I needed somebody who was experienced in the design of children's sleeping cots and beds.
Wow.
And then a second case, the second expert is a toxicologist who could look at the mold that was growing at the bottom of the cot and give an expert opinion on whether the mold could have caused the illness that the child experienced. Then I've been involved in a number of cases, what you call class actions. And class action cases, let's say I've been involved in cases where you use the term natural in foods. Many times you've seen product labels that say all natural or organic or GMO free, which means free of genetically modified organisms. And what are the criteria for using these terms in food products? What does natural really mean? And what are the industry standards? What are the government standards? So these are some of the types of class actions that I've been involved in.
Wow, it sounds like you've really branched out from where you started. Well, what are some of the things that you enjoy most about finding the expert witnesses?
I enjoy just the exposure it gives to a whole variety of different types of subject. People hear about class actions, but actually what is a class action? And about just everything from, the design of women's shoes to the use of GMOs in foods, to the designs of ships, to the designs of airplanes, et cetera, et cetera. It's just fascinating stuff, I find. I enjoy the detective work that goes into finding people. I enjoy the hunt, more or less. It's really interesting. Well, you've tried searching this way. Maybe you should try searching another way. Maybe you should try this. Maybe you should try that. And many times I talk to lots of college professors. I rely on people in academia a great deal, because academics oftentimes, but not always, have to have great specialized knowledge in a certain area, and many times they tend to be less likely to be conflicted than people, let's say, who function as employees of companies or as independent consultants.
So when you're working with especially the academic experts, do you find yourself occasionally attending a seminar?
Well, I don't really attend the seminars. The types of cases I get are so diverse that I really can't anticipate what cases are going to be coming up. I really can't justify attending a seminar in one particular area, because you could get anything. What I do, I rely a lot on search engines, and if there's anything that comes along, let's say in the pharmaceutical area and so on, I know quite a few people.
Do you see yourself ever stopping this, or do you kind of enjoy it enough that you would do this for the foreseeable future?
Right now, I intend to do it for the foreseeable future. I thoroughly enjoy it. It's all done from home. It's all done, over the internet. The cases come to me from Boston on the East Coast. So when I get up in the morning, I'll go down and check the Reuben Anders website and see if there's a new case there. And if I have any questions, I'll call my contacts there, discuss the case with them a little bit, get some more specifics, and then decide if I want to accept the case or not. It's very enjoyable, and I intend to continue as long as I can.
And so, as you mentioned earlier, you're consulting back to this firm. So does this give you the freedom to decide when you want to take a vacation, as opposed to be tying down to somebody else's schedule?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, I have a lot of freedom as far as that. If I decide I want to take a vacation, I will just send an email saying that I will be on vacation from this date to that date, and I'll be available to accept new cases after a certain date. There's no problem at all with that.
So have you ever been tempted to take on a few cases while you're on vacation?
Actually, I've been tempted to continue searching for some cases while I've been. I would not take on a new case while I'm on vacation, but sometimes, I've got a search ongoing where I had that happen recently. I went to a conference down at Asilomar, down in the Monterey Peninsula. And while I was at the conference down there, I had an ongoing case that I had been working on. So I had to continue working on that case down there, make a couple phone calls, do a write-up, et cetera, et cetera. But again, it can all be done by computer, so there was no problem with it.
It's kind of nice to have a portable job that you're basically in charge of.
Well, yes. I mean, the thing is, you have to come up with good quality candidates. That's number one. And you have to find them within a reasonable amount of time, expected deadlines. There's no hard, fast deadlines, but there are expectations for deadlines that, that you definitely want to meet.
So you said your priority ones you need to try to clear and come up with the right candidates within just a day or two. Is that right?
Right.
And on some of the longer cases or the average cases, what time frame do you try to work in?
Approximately 4 to 5 days. Approximately 4 to 5 days, and that's from the time that I initially received the case to the time that I actually have completed the interview, completed the write-up, and submitted the case, or submitted the candidate.
Have you ever had someone you've submitted change their mind at the last minute, or decide they are conflicted, or?
No, I haven't had them change. Well, yes. In fact, yes. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, yes, I have. Yes, I have.
Was it a surprise? Did you think they were on the edge, or?
It was a surprise. I've had that probably 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
And when they spoke after the candidate spoke with the attorneys actually involved in the case, they decided that they couldn't represent the side of the case that I had talked about. So yeah, so that's always a little bit disheartening, because you kind of feel, well, gee, I should have probed that more. I should have gone into more detail.
Yeah.
But yes, that does happen.
Well, with the quick turnarounds, it seems like there's a limit to how much detail you can go into. This is fascinating. I think we could probably go on forever talking about all kinds of things, although I suppose at some point disclosure issues would
That's
come
right.
up. But it sounds like you've got an excellent opportunity to have a lot of fun in the work you do and hopefully do a lot of good. And I thank you again for talking with us about that today, and hope to hear more from you in the future.
Well, it was a pleasure being here. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chuck.
Okay.
We hope you found this program as enjoyable as we did. Join us next time for the better part. And meanwhile, check us out on YouTube for some of our earlier programs.